Happy holidays, everyone. So nice to be with you. I have a bunch of announcements, so let me see if I can get through them. So all this should be posted on Facebook sometime soon, but the schedule is going to be interrupted the next couple weeks a little bit. So this Wednesday, the 15th, there'll be no live meditation, but I encourage you to meditate anyways at the same time and just hold the space, and you will begin to feel the grace. So I'll be holding space, but I'll just be doing it at a Christmas play with my little girl. So, okay. Then this coming Sunday, December 19th, and December 26th, there'll be no Facebook satsang, but there'll be regular Zoom satsang. So for the Zoom people, there'll be no problem there. And if you're on Facebook or in Facebook land, please just join us in the Zoom for the Zoom satsangs. Those will continue uninterrupted. The Kundalini group on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve will not be happening. I apologize for that. I'm going to be busy with family. So always check Facebook for updates, because sometimes, just out of nowhere, I put something together spontaneously, and sometimes, like if my child takes a nap or something, it just happens to be the right time, goes to bed early or something, I might just hop on. So anyways, okay, I think I did my part. Yes, I did it. Okay. So let's do this. As always, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes and to feel into your body. And I invite you this evening to connect with the energy of truth. And so I'm not interested in a philosophical truth, but I invite you to allow your awareness to descend into the space of the heart, even furthermore into the hara, the lower belly. And in an active way, I invite you just to ask, what is my relationship with the truth? What is my relationship with the truth? Are you connected to the absolute truth of your being? And to clarify again, that truth is not a thought, it's nothing philosophical. But when you're connected to the absolute truth of your being, or the direct experience of truth, you'll feel a sense of power, a sense of integrity, nobility, deep in the hara. When we live in the truth, we're connected to the truth, we tend to sleep well at night. So we feel in alignment. What is my relationship with the truth? How do I experience the truth directly? And for some of you, you may notice that the truth, it can be a little bit cold, like wintertime. It can be a little stark or stoic. And when you first glance at the truth. But as you feel more deeply and fully into the hara, you may actually notice that the truth radiates a feeling, just a gentle quality. Of warmth and nobility. There's a directness to it, an uprightness to it. And so again, I'm just inviting you to feel this, to experience this. The common place where many people trip is they think about egoic truths or personal truths like politics or religious views or dogmas. But if you just gently discern the difference between absolute truth, so the direct experience of your divine nature, and say, for example, like a relative egoic emotional truth, like I'm right, or that other person is wrong, or this is the way everyone should live, you'll notice there's a big difference there between egoic truths, righteousness, and these deeper absolute truths. And so again, you may notice absolute truth looks cold, but as you feel into it, there's a warmth and a nobility there. And if you could just think of or just imagine or connect to any emotional egoic truth, see, oftentimes it's very fiery on the surface. And actually, in the depth of emotional truths, you might see that there's great insecurity there. Great insecurity. And so throughout the entirety of the spiritual path, on a daily basis, you'll be challenged or asked, are you living the truth? Is my outward expression a manifestation of the truth? Am I living in alignment? And again, when you live in alignment, there's a silence to your mind. Your mind doesn't have to think about much. It doesn't have to fight against much. It doesn't have to guard or defend. You rest in this space, which is radiating power, radiating divinity. And it feels really good in a very quiet way. It's not like an excitable joy, a very quiet, fundamental joy. And so I invite you just to continue to feel, what is the truth? How is the truth experienced as me, as this one? And if you want, you can open your eyes. If you want to keep them closed, that's fine too. It's such a powerful question. What is the truth? What's the truth in this moment? So right now, if I feel into the truth in this moment, there's a silence here, a peace, a gentle love, a clarity, and this power, a power that's unshakable. Now, being the Christmas season, I'd love to tell a sweet story, about Jesus. But a lot of the times, Jesus's life, it was not so sweet. He was always coming head to head with outer, relative untruths. And there was that moment, at right before the crucifixion. Can't say this word tonight. Right before they nailed him up. When Pontius Pilate, brought him inside, said, "Hey, look, can you just say that you're not the Son of God? Can you just say that? Can you just work with me here? And then we don't have to put you on the cross. We don't have to crucify you. Can you just say that you're not the Son of God?" And when it was his time to do what most of us would do and tell a lie or bend the truth and kind of compromise in a way to save our skin, of course, Jesus, he didn't compromise himself. And for most of us, we won't come face to face with such a big dramatic event like that. But I can assure you there'll be 1,000,001 small events where you come face to face with something. And in the reckoning, a new life will be born in alignment with greater truth, greater service, greater nobility to that which is good and true and beautiful. Or where we can camouflage ourselves and hide and play games and do this type of thing. And most of the world, they choose to hide and play games. And I can remember when I was when I did couples counseling. I don't do that work anymore, but anytime there was a question of whether the person was cheating, I always had a little bit of fun. I said, let's just get out the phones. Let's take a peek. let's take a peek. And the beautiful thing about the digital age is it's written. It's just written right there. And sometimes it's written even with like a picture of your face next to it. Sometimes it's just your initials, if it's like a text message, but sometimes if it's, one of those apps that'll have like a picture of you. A picture of you. And it's like, well, which you is that? Which you is that? So it's a great question. How do I live? Do I live in integrity? And I want to be crystal clear here. So often the thing that people really trip over with the question of truth, the discernment around truth, is they think to tell the truth means to say everything you think and feel egoically. And I can remember when I was a young kid, high school teacher, just for a minute in time. And there was a girl in my class, and I'd love to say her name, but I'm not going to. She was just stuck in my memory, where she would say every single thing she thought and felt just all day long in the class. And I was just like, my God, girl, stop it. Stop. Just everything she would say, she would just, everything she would think or feel, she would just comment and just let it rip, just let it flow out her lips. And, when we haven't discerned much or contemplated much about the truth, we think that this is what it means to tell the truth, just to say everything we think and feel. And if we step back even further, we can ask, where do my thoughts come from? Are these thoughts even mine? These thoughts that I'm thinking, or these feelings that I'm feeling, are they actually mine? And when you start to discover that most of what you think are not your thoughts, they're thoughts of the collective, they're thoughts of the nightly news, they're thoughts that have arisen out of what the Buddha called conditioning. But if you ask your truth to speak, oftentimes it's really silent. It's just this radiating presence of clarity. If we ask the truth to speak, it might just be something like, I am. And the direct experience of I am is just this very quiet, almost silent radiance that flows into infinity. I am. I am. I can remember once when a good friend of mine, unfortunately, I called him out on something, and unfortunately, he was being dishonest with me. And from the place of I am, I saw very clearly what was happening in a relative sense. He was scared, he was insecure. And so he looked me straight in the eyes and he just spattered out a lie. And inside I just knew, oh, this is done. This is done. Now, in a relative sense, it was heartbreaking. Tremendously heartbreaking, because I really cared about this guy. I really loved him. He was a good friend of mine for many years. In this deeper sense, I just knew that this was the end. And as I felt into the end, directly, and again, staying with the truth, I realized that the end actually opened up into something much greater. It was actually the beginning of something new. A new life. A new life with greater integrity, greater love, greater clarity, and less BS. And from a place of humility, I could see that it just wasn't the other person's BS that there was going to be less of. There was also going to be less of my BS. Because oftentimes when we're relating to another and there is BS, when there's games being played, or I could take ownership and see, oh, there was complacency on my part. There was actually a part of me that was actively denying that this person was doing what they were doing. I actually wanted it not to be true, so I was kind of ignoring it. And I had ignored it, I could have put up with it, repressed it. It's like when you see something you don't want to see, something you don't want to know. And I noticed what I was doing was I was enabling this lie to continue. But if I looked at my emotional nature, I saw I was actually doing harm to my own self, because I was walking around carrying something. This is a word I don't like to use, but I was carrying something dirty. Because secrets say they're dirty. They stink. Yeah, there's like a psychological denseness to them. And when you carry around something that stinks and it's dirty and it's kind of heavy, and you're using this energy not to see it, there's a funny thing that happens in our emotional nature. We start to get angry. We start to get angry. And a lot of spiritual teachers, they say, well, when you see anger within you, you find it, you should let it go, transcend it, dismiss it. But I'm always curious about anger, because anger tends to be the clothes or the costume, the packaging that veils the truth, that veils it. And by veiling it, I mean anger, what a lot of us do when we get angry, when we know the truth and we don't speak the truth or act out the truth or live the truth, we get angry, and the anger normally goes into blame, like it's his fault or her fault or their fault. It's God's fault. We might get lost in a story, or this shouldn't happen or should happen or whatever. But if you just feel into anger in a tantric way, deeply examine it without going, just with the surface level thought, which is often blame. If you look under it, there's so much power in anger. So most people are afraid to open it. Like, oh, I don't want to touch that. So if I do, my life will change. My life will change. And that's one of the problems with truth. When you follow it, your life will change. Now, the good news is it will change for the better. Now, sometimes in the short term, anger can can put an end to something. But again, as you continually ask, like, what is the truth here? Is the truth for this thing to end forever and ever? Or is the truth that life goes on, that life changes, life morphs and grows, and it develops and it evolves? Like, what is the truth? And again, to clarify, we really want to have discernment between the truth and emotional egoic truths. Because oftentimes emotional egoic truths are thoughts that we have that we think are the truth. We give them way too much power. Way too much power in our life. And sometimes when we express these, or often when we express emotional truths, we cause great pain for ourselves or for others. But when you live in the truth, when you choose the truth, when you act out the truth, we don't cause karma. We may cause change, but we don't cause karma. And something ultimately good will come. Now, sometimes, again, in the meantime, it can be a little bit messy. It can be a little bit messy. And for many of us, we get very frightened to tell the truth, to speak the truth, because we don't feel like we'll be loved or supported, or we feel that we'll be kicked out of the tribe. Yeah, I once heard Eli Jackson Bear, speak about like when people lie, it's a form of camouflage. I realized, oh God, that's so good. It's so good. It's so true. That lying is literally how we camouflage ourselves. And the thing with Christ, he chose not to camouflage himself. He chose to be bold, to not camouflage himself. That's why we respect him and honor him so greatly, especially during this season, because he embodied the truth. Embodied the truth. And boy, is this a tough task. Oftentimes I'll reflect on my day and see, oh yeah, here and there, and in this instance, in that instance, I didn't live the highest. And I brushed, some dirt under the rock. Under the rock. And sometimes lying, it isn't so much about words, like what we said to this person or that person. I mean, most of us are beyond that. But sometimes lying simply means we're not living in our divine nature. Like we're living a lie. We're living in our egoic nature. We're thinking and believing that I am this character who needs to be offended or who has this political orientation and this view. That tends to be the greatest lie, is that we're just disconnected from our hearts, from our divinity, from our beauty, from our radiance. It's like, my God, what again, like what karma that causes when we're disconnected from our own beauty. Last night, yesterday, maybe the day before, I think it was yesterday. No, 2 days ago. Here in Colorado, it got really cold, like freezing. And it's been nice and, I'll say nice and semi-warm. We've had days in the 50s and 60s. I've been biking, mountain biking throughout December. And whatever it was, let's say the 9th of December came along and it just froze. It went down to 0 degrees. It snowed a foot. And, I have this old habit just from working outside of hating the cold. Now, I don't hate much here on planet Earth, but there was legitimate, I say this with a smile, legitimate hatred towards the cold. And I realized, I went outside one night and I was kind of just cursing the cold because it makes my body tight and tense, and really have to bundle up. And people, for those of you who've never lived in cold, like everything starts breaking in the cold. It's just like anything outside plastic, you touch it and sometimes it just breaks, it just shatters. You have to scrape your windows. For us, we have to dig our cars out of the snow. And I went outside. I was out there with Doodles and Buster. It was like cold, late at night. I walk them before bedtime. And I just looked at this huge starry sky, the Milky Way above, and it's absolutely freezing in Colorado at night because we don't have much humidity and there's no clouds to keep the warmth, the warmth near the earth. All the warmth just radiates off into the sky. But when else I was just freezing. But as I was looking at the stars and the sliver of the moon that there was, and these huge ponderosa pine trees that are just, they're like, they have massive piles of snow, like on that pine needles. And I was so utterly touched by the absolute beauty of this moment. Just, I like to say, it knocked my socks off. Like literally, it's just freezing, and my habitual body was complaining. But I saw the stars and these giant ponderosas with these billowing piles of snow. It's like, oh my Lord, the world is so utterly beautiful and perfect. Right here, right now. Right here, right now. I cannot continue to lie that I'm hating something. I'm not hating. I'm loving, absolutely loving. Absolutely loving. Now, in a relative truth, yes, at some point soon, next couple of years, I'll be making my way to the South Pacific to the best of my ability. but in this moment, it's like, do I need to hate the cold? No, no. In so many moments, like when we get snow, the color of the sky changes. We have this alpine glow. These wonderful warm purples, greens, that just yellows just gently radiate off the earth. It's like the earth has its own sunset, as light bounces off snow. So utterly beautiful. And so a relative truth is like, yeah, snow makes things difficult. Cold makes things difficult at times. Cold ends things. It ends, summertime. Ends, leaves. Puts everything into a dormancy. And so it's always good to ask, like, what is the actual truth here? Not the emotional truth, but what is the actual truth of my experience of this moment? What is the truth? And again, sometimes the truth is in a relative way, I'm tired. But in a direct way, I am. I am this silence, this peace. I am awake. And this awakeness, this awareness is noticing some tiredness or fatigue or heartache or pain. So utterly important. So utterly important to be able to discern between what you are fundamentally, essentially, and what experience is moving through you. Because experiences come and go. But what's here all the time? What is that thing? That's the truth. That's the truth. And to the degree, or to the degree that you have a relationship with the direct experience of truth as your own being, When you know yourself as the truth, you're less at the mercy of your emotional nature, your thinking nature. But to the degree that we're not connected to the truth, we're immensely, exponentially at the mercy of our egoic nature, of how we feel, what we think. Gandhi had a funny relationship with the truth where, he spoke the truth, he lived the truth. They threw him in jail, for what the British did. And he would sit in jail and he just, just ask himself, what am I experiencing? I'm experiencing peace. I'm experiencing quietude. I'm experiencing, a smiling face from the guards because they loved him. He loved them. Yeah, these beautiful relationships with the prison guards. He said he was fed. He said it's great. He said it's like his own private monastery that the British threw him in. And so the truth, what is it directly? Like, what is your experience directly? I mean, I'm sure he certainly could have complained. Any of us, we can complain. Any point in life. I've heard people complain about receiving a massage before. Like, geez, how fortunate you are. You able to receive some affectionate, loving, or healing touch. And they complain about it. That's the nature of the ego. You can complain about anything. And so, anyways, this is a wonderful question, and it's something to contemplate deeply. Deeply, especially as winter, as we settle more fully into winter. Winter has almost like this cold, piercing directness that draws you inward. And so I encourage you to play with this, to play with these questions. And so, anyways, if anyone has a question, it's something they want to speak about, please bring it forward. I just ask that the questions are short, clear, and direct, please and thank you. All right, let's hear what Terry has to say. Hi, Terry, are you here?
Yeah, sorry. It was asking me to unmute.
Yeah, that's all right.
And I wasn't on top of the digital experience.
Yeah.
I just wanted to briefly share the experience I had the other day.
Terry, you just got real quiet all of a sudden. I can barely hear you. It almost sounds like you. Terry?
Near-death experience.
Hey, Terry. Terry, your mic broke up really bad. We could hear you for a minute and then it just kind of went muffled. Almost sounded like you put a pillow over the mic. So I'm gonna mute you, then let's unmute you again. Let's try again. Say something now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, okay, that's much, much better. Yeah, so what, tell us what you were saying. Oh man, it looks like we lost her connection. Okay, technical difficulty. Well, how about anyone else? Does anyone else have something they want to bring forward? Okay, let's hear from Tom.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can. Yeah. Hi, Tom.
Hey. Um, so I have a question about living in a state of presence. And I'm noticing that the kundalini for me, or the energy, will be settled when my mind is clear and my heart is open. And I can do that, when I'm sitting at home. And really what I'm playing with or asking is like, how can we carry that realization when we're in the world? And I almost mean, practically, like, is there an intermediary where you're doing walking meditation, or you're sort of trying to take the meditative state into the world, and just having a very soft and quiet awareness with you? And, is that a practice? Is there something to do with that helps you to take it off the cushion and into the world?
Yeah. Well, in
The
a sense,
kundalini feels great.
yeah. In a sense, Tom, you just answered your question. Is starting with walking meditation can be really helpful. Slowly entering life is probably the number one thing. Slowly entering life. So all of us at every moment are resting in true nature as true nature. Like it's always already happening. The problem is we have an egoic nature. So we have the second mind, our egoic mind, which is overstimulated by life. And because it's overstimulated, it just has so many thoughts that are happening at once. Now, about an hour ago, I had a really bad case of vertigo. And so, like the room was spinning and I was getting all this information. And it's really hard, to be present, to be clear and awake, or whatever. Manifesting presence when we're having all this stimulation. Basically the stimulation was of confusion. But most of us, we don't suffer from vertigo. We suffer from having a phone, and the phone's always dinging at us, and people are texting us, and all these worlds are coming at us. I just was looking at my phone a while ago, and I felt, okay, here's another notification I'm going to turn off. And it's like, so it's not dinging at me, not beeping at me, not telling me, Craig, we want your attention here. If you want to live as presence, our attention must be in our heart, in our body, in the directness of this moment in reality. Now, a while ago, I kind of stopped just paying attention to the news at all. And I realized, oh, that's just less stimulation. I don't need any of that stimulation. I don't need the stimulation of bad news on a daily basis. I don't need it on a weekly basis. Like I don't need here, Craig, here's the bad news of the day or the moment or the play-by-play. Like I don't need this. And so to live in presence, we have our attention on presence. And just like that old saying goes, wherever you place awareness, that thing grows. So if you place awareness in the heart grows. If you place it in just vast, spacious emptiness grows. But if we place attention in moment by moment egoic awareness, our attention will go from being one pointed just to being just splintered in every direction. What about this? And what about that? And how about something to eat? Is it vegan? Is it this and that? Is how many calories are? What's going on? And oh, look over there. There's a beautiful girl, and there's a shiny car, and here's an ad for a new TV. And it's like, even as I start to think in that way, it makes me feel crazy. And I'll take it even a step further. To me, it feels literally like hell. One of my definitions of hell is to be inwardly divided. For my attention to be divided in all these different ways. All these different ways. And if you just look at, well, what do monks do? Monks try to get everything they can out of their lives. No relationship, no home ownership, no mess around here or there, no politics. Like, we're just going to sit and pray, sit and meditate, sit and be. And if you ever go to a monastery, it's like the monks aren't all running around chit-chatting with each other. They're not carrying iPhones and checking out the latest stuff. They're just here. They're just here. And so when you do the dishes, just do the dishes. When you walk, just walk. Just walk. Just be. But as soon as you start to do multiple things at once, like, what's that called? Multitasking, right? That's a word, multitasking. Doing bunches of things at the same time, you'll feel divided. And you will literally, your consciousness will literally begin to suffer. And if you feel it, this is one of the things I learned, hanging out with the good Buddhists, that if you just notice a thought, like any thought, will have a subtle vibration of stress to it. Now, if it's a true thought, it has little or no stress, that actually uplifts you. But just like random thoughts will have subtle stress in them. That's just one thought. And if you have 50 thoughts a minute, or hell, 50 thoughts an hour, it's just little moments of stress. Whereas if you just stay with the breath, you stay with your experience, you'll notice, oh, like I feel really good when I just stay with my direct experience. And so, one of the things you and I have spoken about, Tom, is we can take this a step further, be even more proactive in it, where you actually choose what thoughts to think. So you choose to reflect on thoughts of love, thoughts of beauty, thoughts of spirituality, and these things will make your presence grow. You choose to invoke emotions of joy instead of, emotions of pain, or why did somebody do this, or ruminating on pain. And so oftentimes our mind, our egoic mind, it doesn't know what to do in life. Like, its primary function is to look for problems. And so if it's got nothing to do, it'll just start finding problems. It's too hot, it's too cold, it's too sunny. I'm getting too much sun on my skin. Maybe I'll get skin cancer. It's like, what the heck? Can you just lay in the sun? Can you just be in the sun and experience the warmth directly? Can you open to the sun? And so, just to make it real practical, because that's what your question was can we keep life simple? Again, this is what every monastery on planet Earth is, just based on a simple life. Let's keep it as simple as possible. Now, as you stabilize in presence, you can maintain presence in a more complicated world, if you're rooted in it. And so there's a couple factors here. So fundamentally, if the body feels safe, it's much easier to stay in presence. Just basic truth. If your nervous system feels safe, it's easier to stay in presence. If your nervous system feels insecure or traumatized or fearful, very difficult to stay in presence, because you have this computer in your head telling you, look out for danger. Danger repeats itself. You can't trust men, can't trust women, can't trust this, can't, just fill your mind with, thoughts of negativity or danger. So anything you can do to help your body feel safe will greatly increase like the time and the duration that you experience presence. And that's why meditation and yoga is one of the primary things. You sit down, you connect to the ground of being, you connect to the present moment. You're not in the past, you're not in the future. And for the majority of us, the present moment is ridiculously safe. It's ridiculously safe. And so how to stay in this present moment? So yeah, practice. Envisioning. So even if like you're practicing and you're feeling yourself like just flooded with pain or sadness, envisioning love. Like sometimes we need to vision a little bit, co-create, choose to align with the truth and not to align with the past. Choose to align with what you actually want. What do I want? And there's something about, engagement with life when you consciously, a lot of people call this intentionally align with what you want, and you start to walk in that direction, your presence grows. And even if you're really busy, your presence grows. But if you're not clear about who you are and what you want and how you want to live, you're not sure what direction you're walking, your egoic nature is going to be kind of grasping at like, maybe this, maybe that. How about one of these? Let's have, like you might be too young to have seen Caddyshack, but for the older folks in the room have seen Caddyshack. There was that scene when the judge, he brought like his nephew or something to the country club, and he was like a snotty little rich kid, this kid. And he walked up to like the snack stand and he said like, I'll have a steak sandwich and a Coca-Cola and a steak sandwich and one of these and one of those and one of this and one of that. And the judge Smells, I think was his name, Smells, however you say it, said, you'll have nothing and like it. It's like, shut up. Shut up. And sometimes, we need to learn how to say that to our own mind in a compassionate way. If we say shut up from a place of judgment, our presence contracts. Sometimes if we say stop with a smile, like stop it, like stop. I say this to my wife, I say this to my kids sometimes, just say stop, like stop it, just stop. But I say it with a smile. So my presence expands and they're all looking at me with a sense of curiosity. They see I'm smiling. Now we're all here in the present moment. We're not complaining about whatever dad did or the dog did or life did. We just stop. And the question is, can we stay stopped? And of course, I'm just referring to the egoic orientation. When we allow that orientation to stop and then ask something like, what's true now? Well, what's true is, I love myself. I love this child. Or I love this family. I love this moment. That's the truth. And sometimes we just have to say, stop. Stop. And again, if we another little practice is like, can we bring awareness, attention into the felt experience in the body, the felt experience of the body, the felt sense of awareness itself. Any of these just tend to get us out of our head, just like coming into the body. And you stay in the body. You stay in the body. Just in the felt directness of this moment. Connect to the fundamental aliveness in this moment. And then again, as we play with this, sometimes it can be fun to play with this, in sports or martial arts or in yoga, as we just stay with the felt experience. One of the reasons people love to be in romantic relationship is, say, for example, like on a cold winter night, or where you're at a warm summer night, to have your body connected to another person's body. They're just sitting on a couch and you're just holding them, or they're holding you, and just feeling the dance of warmth from their heart to your heart, and your heart back to their heart. Just this warmth. And people get so crazy about like physical intimacy. I mean, like, say, sexual intimacy. They forget, like, what people really love is just warmth. Is my presence connected to your presence? One of the reasons we come to satsang is to feel each other's presence and the presence of God. So you stay with a felt experience. The felt experience. Just stay with it. Just stay with it. And so there was, I think, a lot of different examples. I muted you, Tom, because I was getting a little feedback from the computer there. But was that helpful? Or is there more?
That was phenomenal, and I was sort of in that state while I was listening to all of that, and I'm praying that if I recall it, it'll be there.
Yeah, of course.
But I was feeling what you're saying, and there's a small example of that I've just been playing around with, of just having very slight intentions for like the next portion of the day. So I might just have a quiet mind and then say, I'd really like to have a nice experience washing the dishes, or I'd really like to just have a smooth experience with that. And then I noticed that that changes my experience a lot.
Yeah.
But it's about narrowing my focus and not being aware of multiple things at once. Or even just, I'd really like to enjoy this cup of coffee. And then I do drink and I feel it and taste it and savor it much more, because my intention is just limited to that.
Yeah.
And it allows me to appreciate life. Of course, I forget all the time, but thank you. I felt a lot of what you're saying.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And so thank you, Tom, for sharing. Yeah, Tom brings up something beautiful, that we can actually train our consciousness, we can train our body, we can train our egoic nature to stay in the present moment. We can train it, through just showing up again and again and being present with what we drink, with what we're doing. We can train it. Now in 2022, 2021, whatever year it is, we've trained our body, our consciousness, to be splintered through, like infinity scroll of Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. We've trained ourselves to be divided to I'm still surprised when I drive down the road, how many people are driving and texting. I'm just blown away. And, at first I think it was against the law. And now I think it's just everyone does it. Even one of my friends is a sheriff, and that's what he does all day long. He's just like surfing the internet. He's being a policeman. Like, geez, it's just we've trained ourselves to compulsively multitask. And it's like, I dare anyone to just like forget your phone for a day. And so just imagine like how much attention is on your phone. I can remember when I was a little kid, and we took health, like health class in puberty, and they talked about like how many sexual thoughts a little, a kid in puberty was having a day. It's like something silly, it's like 10,000 a day. But how many times we look or think about our phone or touch our phone? They're saying that now. It's like people are just touching their phone all the time. All the time. So it's just our awareness always going to it, to it, to it, to it, to it. I like just to lose my phone. The people around me, it makes them very upset. But people who text it get very upset with me. So I just lose it. I leave it. Say, I called you. I don't have the thing on me. I treat it like one of those wall phones that we used to have with a cord. It's over there somewhere. I don't have the ringer on. Again, this is me. So I'm training my life around silence, orienting myself towards silence. And I know I've told this story often, but I had a friend, and she was an acupuncturist, and she was working with a client, and the client was doing some other work with a shaman, a Navajo shaman, out here in the desert by where I live. And the client wanted the acupuncturist and the shaman to work together. And my acupuncturist friend was like, yeah, sure. Like, I'd be happy to work with your shaman. Can we schedule a meeting? And the client was like, yeah, let me get back to you. And so, somehow she reached out, got a hold of the shaman. And the shaman said, okay, I'll come. But for him, like, he didn't have such a concept of time. He didn't have a watch. He didn't have an iPhone. Didn't know what day of the week it was. He lived in shaman time, the present moment. Basically, he was going to walk in from the desert for this meeting. She said, well, he can't just come like whenever, because I might be with a client or something. Like, this doesn't work. And, I see this just because I live right on the edge of Navajo land and Ute land. Is sometimes I'll interact, with some of my Navajo or Ute friends, and their direct experience of time, like how their body orients around time, is so utterly different than us. Many of us can predict the time because we're just touching our phone all day long. We're seeing it. We're connected to it. And again, like, that causes stress. But when you step into the timeless dimension of being, your consciousness is different. And to train yourself and say, for example, letting go of time, might not be so successful here on planet Earth if you do that, but you'll be successful in the realm of consciousness. You have a radically different kind of life than if we're deeply connected to this thing called time. So we can train ourselves in many different ways. So beautiful, Tom. Thanks for sharing. Okay, I'm just going to peek over here at Facebook land. How can we align more with truth in our relationships when we've spent most of our life being people pleasers and putting on a false mask to keep the peace? It seems most people expect that version of me now, and it's tough to speak my truth and my wisdom. Yeah, I can tell you this, that I once suffered from this. I was a compulsive pleaser and compulsive mediator. I mean, I just kept the peace, all the time, always putting myself last. And one of my teachers said to me, Craig, can you get comfortable disappointing others? Like, what do you mean disappointing others? I said, well, the reason you please is because you're afraid to disappoint anyone. So, oh yeah, I'm afraid to disappoint someone. I'm afraid that I'll be kicked out of the tribe. I'm afraid that I won't be loved. And so that's why we please. We please to keep the homeostasis of the relationship, to keep everything nice. But we have to be comfortable disappointing others if we're going to live in the truth, because sometimes the truth is difficult. Sometimes it feels harsh. Sometimes it feels, almost violent to speak the truth. And it's true, like the truth sometimes destroys things. It's like winter destroys summer. But again, as if you keep opening to it, if you have trust that it's okay to speak the truth, I value the truth more than I do pleasing. I value the truth more than I value my own mask. And you'll have a different type of life. A different type of life. An incredibly different type of life. And you'll begin to understand there's much greater love and intimacy and connection in the truth than if we live behind a mask. We live behind a mask, we suffer. We suffer. So you have to get comfortable disappointing others. You also might have to get comfortable. Here's a fun one that I discovered. Like, I used to hold myself back because I was afraid of success. Gosh, if things do become successful, I won't be able to complain anymore. I won't be able to do the poor me dance. I won't be able to wallow with my friends in how bad life sucks or whatever. It's like, okay, like that's a stupid thing to be afraid of. It's a stupid thing to be afraid of success. It's like, my God. I can even remember I was afraid of, geez, if I make more money, I have to pay more taxes. It's like, this is a silly thought. Like if I make more money, I'll have more money to pay more taxes. It's like, come on, Craig, use your brain. Like, and so we get confused in life sometimes. We get confused. And, oftentimes, like if we have a pleaser within us, oftentimes it can be connected to like a point on the Enneagram where we align with, and or where our ego is crystallized around. That's what it was for me. And I started to see, oh, this is just a program. I don't need this program. I'd much rather live in the truth because I value truth and I value freedom. I value being awake more than I value a mask. So what do you value? Okay, let me look here. Craig, you said that doing what we want can help us grow in our presence and truth, but how do we discern superficial egoic desires and our true soul desires? It seems a lot of my wants are not necessarily healthy, and my soul often doesn't want anything. Oh, that's interesting. So I challenge you. To look and see if it's true that your soul doesn't want anything. Like, is that true? Most of us, our souls actually chose to incarnate to live a life. And by a life, I don't mean any life, but to live a certain life. And so I encourage you to sit with that a little bit more deeply. Ask, is it actually true that my soul doesn't want anything? Now, I can say there are periods on the path that can be very confusing as we wake up and we start connecting to peace. Like sometimes when we start connecting to peace or start connecting to emptiness, we initially become drunk on emptiness. And you're just like, what do I want? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I want. And, I was once drunk on emptiness, and I can remember sitting in the car and, this is many years ago, maybe 2 decades ago, my partner at the time was saying, well, do you want to do this? I'm like, well, okay, we could. Do you want to do that? Yeah, sure. How about this? Okay. It's like, what the hell do you want? It's like, I'm okay with everything. And, there's kind of a great freedom and like a drunk, empty truth in that experience, that expression. But if you feel down into the hara, like deep in the belly, and you just look at any decision you have to make and ask your hara will tell you yes, no, this way, that way. Your hara will show you. And it doesn't always speak in words. Sometimes it'll just speak in movements of energy. And if we don't feel anything there, sometimes there's a shadow around what we actually want because we've trained ourselves not to listen to ourselves because we were a pleaser, or we don't believe that we're worthy of it or deserve it. Or people play all these psychological games so they don't have to live their truth. Again, it could be, I'm afraid to listen to my truth because that means I'll actually have to change. I have to change. And then just going back to the first part of the question, with discernment, if you ever sit with like a choice, you're saying like, is this an egoic, superficial choice or a deeper choice? So deeper truths come with a quality of power and presence. Superficial truths, superficial desires come with a quality of excitement. And so that's one of the great ways to discern. As long as if you just look at a superficial desire and ask, like, do I really want this? No. Will it taste good? Sure, yeah. It's Christmas time. I'm gonna be with my mom for Christmas, and she keeps talking, her and my wife talking about all the Christmas treats they're gonna make. And they're just talking about all these treats they're going to make, and they're both getting excited. Me, I don't get excited at all because, sugar doesn't jive with me. It's not my truth. It doesn't do it for me. So what actually does it for you, my friend? That's the question. So anyways, let's see here. Hi, Craig. Can you speak about sorry, I'm having trouble seeing this. I don't know what that is. The zeal chakra and what its importance is in the path. I'm going to give a good answer to this one. I don't know what the zeal chakra is. If I'm reading that correctly. So forgive me. Let's hear from Anne. Anne, are you here?
Yeah. Hi.
Hi, Anne.
Yeah, it's just as like boom, boom, like you already answered like everything and more, but I'll just go ahead and ask what I was going to ask, which is about meditation, and I have it written down. You were asking us to rest in the place that is awake, aware, alive, and radiant. And I can do that. But then the next piece was rest in silence, in the silent, quiet peace. And I feel like my experience in meditation is just like there's a lot of energy. I feel really awake. I feel really alive. But the quiet peace and I feel it here in my heart. But I think what you were just saying is like sinking down into the hara to find that quiet peace. So that's what I in the silence. That's what I want to clarify.
Yeah. Well, silence is interesting because silence is actually everywhere. So if you feel into your room right now, you'll notice that silence is here. If you feel into the night sky, you'll notice silence is here. If you have a busy mind, even a loud mind, a question that I'll invite you to play with is, can you notice the space, the silence out of which all thoughts arise? Like if we're listening to music, can you notice, like we listen to music, we think, oh, the music's so loud. There's no silence here. But is it true? Like music takes place in silence. I'll take it a step further. If you feel into this energy, say in your heart, you notice this energy is arising in the space of silence. Your consciousness, the fundamental quality of your consciousness is silent, silence. It's an alive silence. It's a silence and spaciousness and emptiness. They can't be separated from each other. So if there's spaciousness here, there's silence here. And again, there's nowhere that silence is not. And so we think, well, if there's noise, there's not silence here. No, noise is arising in silence. Like your plants, they grow in silence. The earth is happening in silence, being held in silence. Even if you feel into the consciousness of the earth itself, it's ridiculously silent and paradoxically radiant. And the radiance has a hum to it. But if you zero in on the hum, you notice that the hum itself is silent. And that may sound crazy, but like if you just look at any atom, any molecule, any piece of matter, it's flowing in silence. It's made of silence. The majority of it is silence. And, this becomes like a skill, where it's like some of us are attuned to, being able to hear beats or rhythms. We can also be attuned to silence. And, like Tom was saying, he was just working with, just actively enjoying his coffee, just being totally present with, say, the flavor of the coffee or whatever. But as our consciousness is totally present with silence, you start to realize there's a thundering silence in every moment.
Can I say something? It just, maybe what it is I'm just not used to it or something. And it just feels kind of like I am resting, but it's just really a lot of energy.
Yeah. Yes. So silence is the fabric of the entirety of creation. And let's take that a step. Silence is the fabric of non-creation as well. I don't want to get into that, but just there's that as well. It's everywhere, everything. It's the fabric of life, the fabric of your consciousness. And if you ever pay attention to a thought, even, despite what I said about that most thoughts are inherently stressful. If you zero in on one thought itself, you see that thoughts are made of silence.
Yeah.
And all this, it just really starts to break down the fabric of our ego and what we think we know. about reality or creation or what is. And yeah, these are just different ways of viewing and experiencing true nature. The beautiful thing about silence is it has room for everything. So it's ridiculously healing and liberating. So anyways, so nice to see you, Anne. So nice to have you. Yeah, much love. Okay, I think that's probably pretty good. Good place to end. Thank you all for sharing your hearts with me. A big special thanks. Louise sent me these, I wish I had them, these little character toys that she made. They're like little bugs out of arts and crafts material. And my little girl and I were playing with them, and she just had such a blast playing with them. So thank you, Louise. Those were so sweet. So sweet. My daughter goes like, Daddy, how did she make these? I said, well, we'll have to see. We'll have to play around, see if we can make some ourselves. So it was a big hit at my house, a big hit. And you get an extra star for the way you packed them too, because I wouldn't have been able to figure that out. I wouldn't have been able to figure out how to pack them, because they're these little toys. For those of you who don't see, I have to show it next time, but they would have been crushed in any kind of packaging, but she found a way to package these little toy bugs in such a sweet way. So I just want to thank you all for sharing your lives with me, and all the love and generosity and support and kind words. And just thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Happy holidays, everyone. We'll see y'all next time. Good night, everyone.